the Property Pod. Welcome to the Property Pod with Moneyweb. The property sector is an ever-changing sector. And in this podcast series, your host, Suren Naidu, chats to movers and shakers in the property industry.
Hello and welcome to the Property Pod, South Africa's leading property investor podcast right here on Moneyweb, also featuring as a vodcast now on our YouTube channel, dubbed Moneyweb TV. On this weekly show, we gain insider insights from leading CEOs, executives, analysts, and developers in South Africa's dynamic real estate sector. My name is Suren Naidu, Deputy Editor at Moneyweb, and this is our milestone 200th episode of the podcast. The vodcast is just a few episodes on our YouTube channel, so it's quite a big thing for us. We have an entrepreneur of sorts and a leading player in the SA property and hospitality scene on the special edition. He's Murray Collins, the CEO of Syncerus Holdings. Now, Syncerus Holdings has a subsidiary that might have a more popular name, Collins Residential, and the subsidiary has a number of developments in KZN, particularly on the KZN North Coast. These include the 2 billion rand Club Med resort development that's opening later this year, in addition to estates such as Zululami and Seaton. Now, Syncerus is the holding company, as I mentioned. We had Murray back on the podcast in 2021. That was a long time ago. We have chatted to him for a number of stories since then. But from a podcast perspective, it's been a number of years. Welcome back to the Property Pod, Murray. Good to have you.
Morning, Suren. Thanks for inviting me.
As I mentioned, the last time was like 4 years ago, November 2021. We are now in our 200th episode, and yeah, it's good to have you.
Oh, time flies, Suren. It's a good and a bad thing, I suppose, but a lot's happened since then, so great to chat to you again.
You're right, a lot has happened, and considering what's happening in the world right now, a lot can happen in 2 weeks. We have a lot to talk about. You and Collins Residential have been very busy, but before we dive into the big developments, Syncerus Holdings, tell me more about that. You're the CEO of Syncerus Holdings. That's a new name.
Yes, Suren. Well, we've never really been a business that sort of seeks a brand or whatever. We just kind of do what we do. But with the name Collins having, the listed business as well and various other entities, it became confusing to the public, I suppose. And having had a long family history in the residential space, Collins Residential stood on its own, but it wasn't defining of actually who we are as a business. So we decided to come up with a new sort of holding company profile and brand, and chose a name, Syncerus, which is a Latin name for the Cape buffalo, which is my favorite animal. So it goes around Africa. It's a strong communal animal, and it just fitted what we do,
Okay, interesting development there. I'm sure the president would be interested in that name, considering his investments in bulls. Murray, it's been a while that we spoke on a podcast, but how is the property scene in KZN? It's quite a broad question, but is it all about the North Coast? Because pretty much most of your investments are along the North Coast at the moment.
No, definitely. It's not only about the North Coast. I mean, we just got a node there that we believe in strongly. But I mean, from a KZN point of view, there's lots of stuff going on. I mean, around Mshoti, there's a lot going on there. I mean, obviously the corridor between Durban and Johannesburg, the lifeblood of Southern Africa, really. So, people, I think, underestimate the power of what KZN offers the region, not just in South Africa, but to get stuff into Southern Africa. So that corridor is always going to be full of infrastructure and, logistical developments. So things are very different to what they were when we last spoke. I think there's a huge positivity in KZN, a lot of foreign interest too, which is fantastic. And there's a great initiative, to get eThekwini back on its feet to the super city it once was. And all the potential is there. And, it's definitely not only about the North Coast, but I think KZN is in a good space, and there's willpower from the people to keep it going. And we're tired of being the second cousin to other parts of South Africa.
Thanks for that. And you can hear the passion coming through. Obviously, you're a KZN boy, but have investments, across Africa in the different companies that the family has been involved with over the years. But besides the sentiment that you express, what are you hearing on the ground from as an investor in property? Are people investing in KZN? Is the property sentiment a lot better, particularly over the last year, considering interest rates? And we know the Middle East conflict has caused a big, it's a bit of a scary thing in the world at the moment. But, some economists are saying the SARB is going to take a cautious approach and not just hike rates suddenly.
I mean, Serena, are you talking about commercial or hospitality or residential?
No. Obviously, you play in a number of those spaces, but particularly residential, considering, that is a big part of the business. But I do understand you could argue that the Club Med is, partly commercial and you are venturing into commercial developments to make some of your bigger projects mixed-use developments, as it were.
I think the sector, if I understand the question, the property sector in KZN is very buoyant. It's strong. As I said, logistics play a major part in that. The supply chain into South Africa, being the busiest and biggest port, is a massive influence. The other thing that I think people are realizing is that the lifestyle in KZN is phenomenal. And with the ease of flights and being able to commute to Johannesburg and get on the Gautrain train has changed the lifestyle of a lot of people. So there's obviously that semigration from Joburg. But interesting enough, I think people are just waking up to the fact that our lifestyle is a major factor. And I think COVID actually taught us that. If there's one good thing to come out of it was that people are putting lifestyle first rather than other things that were a priority in the past. So I think to answer your question, commercially, the property sector is strong. Hospitality, we hope, gains some strength because we have huge amounts to offer that is untapped as a province, not just the North Coast. And then obviously, Club Med will be catalytic. I mean, they've proved that around the world. I think we're seeing that in the numbers and the bookings that have surprised them too. So, all in all, Suren, I think we're quietly confident of the trajectory of where KZN is going.
Thanks for that insight. We'll get to Club Med in a moment. But the last time we spoke back in November 2021, Collins, the group at the time, secured a big deal with Oria Senior Living to come into one of your estates on the North Coast. I'm not sure if it was Zululami or Seaton. Can you give us an update on the Seaton estate development and perhaps Zululami, considering, there are other projects that have been announced more recently, including a major new private school as part of the commercial or mixed-use side of that project?
Yeah, Serene, well, as you know, the Oria Group bought a large tract of land within Zululami, which is a state that we did just north of Sheffield on the North Coast, and put up a life rights scheme called Coral Cove. It's been very successful. They are, I think, really at the end of the building phase, and obviously residents have moved in, and there are a couple of places still being built there. But it's a big scheme. But I think senior living and assisted living for the region has got a huge potential. I mean, the weather is 12 months a year is good. Access is good. So I think they're going to be, in their world, catalytic for senior living in KZN. And I think it's just the start of it. But it's a phenomenal project, world-class, a really world-class development. And as you know, Growth Point have bought that business from the original investors, which shows a huge confidence and potential again into the region.
Thanks for mentioning that. That was going to be my next question in a way, because I often ask Growth Point, they invested in Umhlanga, are they going to invest further north, considering the amount of local developers involved in developing further up the coast? So that's definitely one to watch. Obviously, it's a Growth Point Investment Partners business, so it's not directly the listed company, but it is one to watch. And have you heard anything? Is Oria considering other developments on the North Coast?
No, I haven't heard whether Oria are considering it, but there obviously are people always looking. And I think the sector is going to move along quite nicely. There's a massive potential in it. And we're seeing the occupancies increasing weekly.
Okay. Now, Seaton, give us an update on that.
Well, Seaton has been overwhelmingly surprising in the last year. So we've doubled year-on-year sales. I think we nearly 85% sold out on the single res units. And it really is a very, very special piece of land. I mean, I think everyone knows that it's got everything that you'd want as I would almost say like a resort living in a couple of years' time with what's on offer there, plus a magnificent beach on Christmas Bay. So, yeah, we're very happy with the sales there. And a lot of people have moved in and are living there. And there are resales as well. So the spec developers are doing well. People who don't want to build their own house are buying from the spec developers. So it's just it's a lovely ecosystem that it's evolving. And, with that gets traction on other aspects of the region. So Seaton really is a fantastic spot, a hot spot, if I can call it that, for KZN at the moment.
There's two further questions I have on that because the project started off as a residential estate, but just an update in terms of how many houses are currently in there and the scale of the estate. And then maybe you want to share that latest development around the private school that's coming there, in addition to potentially any other perhaps retail or office elements that might be coming up or nearby.
Yeah, soon I think there are about 1,000 single res and some PEDs, in Seaton. As I say, the 85% sold on the single res, and there's some PED sites still for sale. And we've staggered that. You don't really want to compete with yourself or with your developer partners either, But I think to answer your question and discuss the broader precinct is very exciting. I mean, Seaton there's one thing about Seaton, and that's the estate, for want of a better word, but there's a much bigger ecosystem or environment outside of that's been created. We've got the Manor House on the western side of the highway, and an estate called the Lela, which is another totally different offering that brings all different types of income brackets together. And the Manor House, the refurb of the Manor House, which is focused on arts and entertainment, which brings a very special nuance to the North Coast. But to get back to the commercial precinct, I mean, there's a wonderful opportunity here of about 280,000 square meters of bulk, which has been spearheaded. Well, the first one is obviously Seaton House, which is a non-profit school a private school with a non-profit, which brings a different aspect to a school. It's not a commercial school, if I can call it that. And it will be from grade 1 to 12 and with some boarding element in it. And it's a holistic environment, where the guys are looking at educating kids differently. I mean, you don't have to be in a classroom. You might be under a lovely big tree or whatever it is, that to educate children, are thinking out the box. And there's some very experienced educators on the board that have put it together. And the uptake and the people who have put their names on for their children has really been unbelievably phenomenal success. So, yeah, we broke ground there a couple of months ago. There's a lot of earthworks going on, tight deadline to meet. But with people coming to an area, you need to have the facilities. You need schools, hospitals, shopping centers, retail, outlets of all sorts. So, yeah, I think Seaton Commercial, if I can call it that, or the Seaton node outside of the state has already got a lot of interest and will continue, to develop over the next 3 or 4 years.
How much is going into that school? Because I understand you have a partnership or you roped in a principal from one of the top Midland schools or the deputy to come in to head up that new school there.
Yeah, I think he was a deputy headmaster at Hilton. He's now the headmaster of Seaton House. So I think it's a phased approach. You bring in certain grades that fill up, and then when they fill up, you move on and on. So, I mean, I can't talk with authority, so I'm not an educator, but I'm led to believe that that's the way to do it. So the first phase is about 110 million, and then it just grows and grows as and when demand fills up, and the school fills up. You can't start in grade 10. I think you got to start in grade 8 on the senior and grade 4, whatever it is, on the junior. But I think other people are probably better at discussing that than I am.
Now you talk 280,000 square meters. What else can we look forward to there? Retail, other elements? I know you largely play in residential. Would you rope in another partner in potential retail there?
Well, we've got obviously a shopping centre. There's a desire and a need for that. So I think it will start off at about a 20,000 square meter neighbourhood shopping centre. Exciting opportunity exists for a medical precinct. There's nothing between, let's call it Sheffield, Ballito, to Richards Bay, and it's a huge area. And just with the amount of people moving into estates that are being built around us, and the medical need is huge. There's also the specialist side of the medical care. So there's the mental health side, there's the day clinics, and so a lot of people have earmarked this particular node as a focal point for medical care. So we're talking to a big hospital chain or a hospital business to take a hospital there, plus a lot of private doctors and specialists. So I think it's very exciting, Suren, that the medical precinct will also be catalytic in the region too.
Well, that's something to watch, because I'm going to get to Club Med, which is quite a massive project for KZN. I'm sure the medical precinct will come into play somehow from a medical tourism perspective. I know KZN Tourism is trying to get the medical tourism side of things off the ground for a number of years. Now, I mentioned Club Med because I wrote about it way back in 2007 in the Mercury, and you weren't talking to them back then. They were looking at a number of sites, even Ismail Galiso Wetland Park at one stage. I was going to ask you how that deal came about, but we had one of your Collins residential execs on the show in September last year. 6 months have passed. The actual deal with Club Med was announced in 2023. Where do things stand at the moment? Is it, you highlighted bookings are better than you anticipated. Is construction complete? A short update from that side, because that's like a 2 billion rand investment, including the lodge in Zululand.
Yes, so construction has gone exceptionally well. We basically finished construction at the end of last year. But as you know, in a resort like this, well, I don't know if you know, but none of us, I think, knew the scale of it, to be honest. But the fit out and the training, it takes a long time. So at the moment, there's decor going in, there's lighting, there's music, there's water in the pools. The kids' water center opened a couple of days ago. So it's all hands on deck. Yeah, building is the least of our worries at the moment, and it went phenomenally well. And I think the project managers can be congratulated on that, because they really divided the project up into 7 different parcels, which was a genius move, so we could control each contractor. Logistically on site, it wasn't easy, but if we hadn't done that, I think we'd been in trouble. But from a building perspective, we're very happy and proud of what we've achieved there. The resort itself is really coming together. I mean, the beds are in, the lights are in. You can feel it now. Before, from when it was just, earthworks, you sort of look at it and go, my goodness. But now the gardens look beautiful. You can just see a wonderful place happening, and the feel is there, and the excitement. And when people are going there, you can anticipate the opening. So we really are at the end of the race here. So let's just hope it carries on like this.
And bookings, you hinted that international bookings have been better than anticipated. How's booking looking for that resort? Considering the CEO of the Tourism Business Council mentioned a few years ago when I asked him about Club Med, because this has been KZN officials have been looking at developing the North Coast for beach tourism for probably 15 to 20 years. And a large part of that is to attract international tourists. How's bookings looking? Obviously, it's got a French link, but the holding company for Club Med is Chinese. So who knows? You could get a lot more diverse tourists coming to KZN.
So the bookings, we can only go on what we hear from Club Med, who basically do, run the resort and do everything. I mean, there's once the resort's built, we really hand over the keys and hope for the best. There's no role that we play. They do everything. But they are incredibly surprised and happy with the bookings for July the 4th, where we opened. Just to put into context, we're the 3rd biggest number of guests booked this year in July, and that includes their 2 major resorts in the Med, which are normally full, which are full. So for us to even be in the top 10 is remarkable, let alone to be 3rd. So people go on holiday there in Europe for their summer holidays and all go to the Med and fill those resorts. So the fact that the clientele is coming to South Africa is a huge vote of confidence in their brand and in what we've done here. So by all accounts, they not only surprised, they can't actually understand. They can't understand it, that people are not going to Europe on their holidays, but they're coming down here, which is fantastic for South Africa. The other interesting thing is the amount of bed nights sold to the conferencing market. Like, it's becoming known as the mass market. South African corporates have really, and some international corporates have really got hold of this with both hands. They've grabbed the opportunity to be the first, or whatever it is, to make use of their conference facilities there. And so much so that Club Med are turning down inquiries when it's busy for tourists to make sure that the conferences come in the quiet times, which we're very happy about. I mean, it's a vote of massive confidence for us.
It's good that you mentioned that, because I'm not sure. It's not something that you usually find in Club Med resorts, the conferencing aspect. So it's something to watch. Just, we can't talk about all the flowery stuff. It's exciting to hear, but, the world is a tumultuous place at the moment. And for KZN, it doesn't have BA flights just yet. Obviously, it lost the BA flight after COVID. But considering what's happening in the Middle East, do you have any concerns or worries that it could impact travel to this new resort? The reason I ask is, as I mentioned, with BA no longer operating, I know KZN is trying to get Air France and other international flyers to fly direct to Europe, but most of KZN's traffic is via the Middle East and those two aviation hubs, Qatar and Dubai or Doha.
I mean, Serena, I think it would be naive to think that it's not going to have an effect. I mean, the world tourism has been rocked by this war. I mean, it's a massive hub. But, there are a lot of other ways to get to South Africa, and especially your Americans and your Europeans don't have to go via the Middle East. And we've seen it in other businesses where people are rerouting. And I just heard this morning on an interview with the CEO of Dubai Airport to say that they're 45% capacity already. Yes, but to answer your question, of course it's a concern, but there's not much we can do about that. And we've just got to make alternative plans to make sure our guests get here as and easily and as seamlessly as they could.
I know the guys from Dubai Tradeport are trying to get a reunion flight going, and obviously there's a French link there too, so we'll have to watch that space. Murray, we're running a bit out of time. Maybe to go past Club Med, that will be very interesting, and a lot of news will come out when it opens in July. Collins Residential and Syncerus Holdings as a group now, your property portfolio or your greenfield sites on the North Coast. Can you share a little bit more on some of your potential long-term plans? Are you quite excited about further developments beyond the Club Med and Seaton developments? I know the group has a partnership with Patrick Sokela, who I think it was 20 years ago managed to get some valuable Ilovo sugarland, and your group has a partnership arrangement with a company called Royal Shaka Property Holdings. I'm not talking about the technical side of how it works, but more the opportunities around further developments, because when you bought that Club Med site from Tongaat Hewlett, they mentioned before they went into all their crisis that they have 3 other sites or 2 or 3 other sites of their own. But as a broader group and partnership, you have a lot more land. I think you mentioned 5,000 hectares when I last spoke to you about it.
Yes, so that's correct. I mean, everything sort of basic north of where Club Med are going up to Jack's Estate is part of the Royal Shaka company. So we're hoping that Club Med will be the first. And I mean, it's incredible beach there. It's lovely, topographically beautiful. I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't have more interest. So we're already having a few more inquiries. As I said, Club Med is a catalytic brand wherever they've been. I mean, they were the first people in Cancun in 1968, and Cancun is now the holiday capital of Mexico and America, So I'm not saying that's going to happen overnight, but yes, to answer the question, I mean, we have plans to develop and look at other opportunities north of us. We've also got plans, around Lalela and Seaton, where we've got quite a lot of bulk for other types of residential developments, which are exciting. So we'll continue just creating the market, creating opportunities, creating lifestyle for people. And the market never lies. So hopefully people latch onto it. So maybe you should buy a house and come and live here and commute.
I don't know if I can afford it, considering you're talking about immigration. It might not exactly be Cape Town, but there's a lot of excitement around that Club Med resort development. Marie, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time on the podcast and our 200th podcast, That was Marie Collins, the CEO of newly incorporated Syncerus Holdings, and they own the subsidiary Collins Residential.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Property Pod with Suren Naidu. To listen to more episodes, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates. Follow Suren on Twitter @Suren Naidu for more of his property industry content and other business stories.